It's a weird line to toe, being a career girl, but also wanting to be an entrepreneur, wanting that so desperately, and also wanting to be a mum. How are we preparing to go into full-time work? How we come to that decision, how we juggle it, what we're doing to make the transition easier. This is going to be a universal feeling for any families who would really just love to spend their time with their little babies, but financially they're not in a position to do that. For anyone who's not watching, I'm tearing up. What a joke. The whole concept of this podcast is life is about money, but it's not just about money. If we had financial control, we can make the choices in our life to do whatever we want, to go and connect with friends, to go on a holiday. And the lack of money doesn't control us in saying you can't do that. Listening to Majella Says, the podcast about finance, when you don't want to put on a podcast about finance. We went away for the weekend interstate. We are literally dead tired. I'm not as tired as I'm supposed to be though, because I was supposed to run a 10-kilometer race on Sunday and I was pretty freaking devastated that I wasn't able to. A few weeks prior, I had been really sick, like deathbed sick, and with like a really bad flu, and Henry had it and Connor had it. We all just were thrown around for weeks. Like, it lasted a really long time. And so I had been training. So for context, let's back up a little. For context, I have not run a 10K before. Oh, that's a lie. I did City to Surf, which is 14 kilometers once, but like, did I do it really? And that was years ago, well before baby, maybe 6 years ago. So anyway, since then, and prior to that, I had never run 10Ks. I think like 5 or 6 is probably as far as I had gone. So after I had Henry, 10 kilometers was like a big goal for me. I was committed to doing the bridge to Brisbane back when I was on the Gold Coast. That was in October. So I would have been about 6 months postpartum. And I was so committed. And then I injured my back. And I couldn't run for like 6 to 9 months that I couldn't run. Anyway, started running again in March, took it super slow, like properly running, stopping, running, walking for ages until I could build up the strength, and then started running consistently, like without having to stop, then built up to a 5K, then I went to 6K. So I was like, very slowly but surely training since March or February, about then. And I pretty devastated that like 3 weeks before the race I had to call it, because I hadn't run the 10K before. I was running up to about 6 kilometers. I was pretty slow, like my pace is pretty slow, and I had to say I'm not going to be able to train and get my body ready for that race. So I had to call it. Pretty devastated. I was really proud of my friends who ran. They both had babies the same time as I did. So it was really good to be there and to cheer them on, and really happy for that, but kind of devastated for myself. Yeah, a bit upset with my body at the moment, like so many health issues, and I'm just like, why are you failing me? Stop failing me. Anyway, so bittersweet day, but it was nice. But boy, was it freaking expensive going up. I always get them confused. Do you get those confused? Down and up. Going up to the Sunshine Coast from Sydney, expensive. We used points to get flights. 4 flights, 2 of them covered on points. I think it may have cost us about $250 to $300 for the return flights. It was $366 for the 2 nights of accommodation. It was our good friend's birthday, so there was a birthday gift, $100 to park for the weekend at the airport, and then about $160-ish on like groceries, going out to eat, food, the rest. So I haven't actually totaled how much that is. Let me see. Oh my gosh, you guys. I did not realize it was this expensive. I just totaled that up. That's about $1,100 for a weekend, you guys. Anyway, look, we're not going to get caught up on it because we did know it was coming. We agreed to do it. We were excited about it. We had a good time. And these are really dear friends of ours. The other good thing about these friends is that they were very accommodating and thoughtful. So they actually offered to cover more of the accommodation cost because they knew that we had to pay for flights. And they were very gracious in how they split things, like food and they brought lots of supplies, and we felt very cared for. I am such a crier. For anyone who's not watching, I'm tearing up. What a joke. Why am I like this? Anyway, we felt very cared for, very looked after. It's beautiful to have friends who, are close enough to know your entire situation. They know everything about what's going on with us, and they just really understood and more than anything wanted us there. So we felt very lucky. And I think this is sort of something to reflect on generally in this, this type of podcast. The whole concept of this podcast is life is about money, but it's not just about money. So yeah, $1,000 for one weekend seems like a lot of money. And for our financial situation right now, probably a bad decision if you're looking at purely from the numbers point of view. But connecting with people and making sure that you have good friends, that's a really important part of life. And so it's really important to budget for that so that you can allow it to happen and you make sure that you plan ahead so that you don't come back with like a big money hangover. So you're not going, yeah, that was fun, but shoot, that was expensive and now I feel a bit sick about how much money we spent and it doesn't feel good overall, like the net once you come back. It's like when you have to pay for your food at the end of your meal, and at the beginning you're like, yeah, I'm so hungry, I want everything looks so good, and you order like a coffee, a juice, a whole breakfast, like you're like so excited, and then it comes to paying and you're like, wasn't that good? Was it worth this much money? It's like, because you're parting with the money at the end, or you're thinking about how much it cost you at the end, it doesn't feel as good. But if you plan appropriately, if you're constantly putting money into, we call it our smile account, or it's like for holidays, if you're constantly putting money into a sinking fund or a little folder or whatever, however you want to call it, it has a purpose assigned to it already. So it doesn't feel like you're taking it away from all of these other potential uses: rent, groceries, savings, investing. You're not taking it away from that because it's already been designated a purpose. In the spirit of complete and utter transparency with you guys, our financial situation right now has not allowed for us to save for holidays. We don't have currently a smile sinking fund or a smile account because we don't actually have enough income coming in order, like we only have enough for our bare minimum expenses and like some savings. So we're just putting those savings into our emergency fund, getting that built up again. So really, according to our own philosophy, we should not have gone away this weekend. But I think that, you can have a really good ideal plan, but life doesn't always follow a plan, and you have to assess whether something is worth it or not. And for us, these people, these friends were worth it. Not a good decision for our financial position, but if we had not gone, it would have been a bad decision for the connections in our life and our friendship. This is where my other concept of if you control money, it won't control you comes in, because if we had been earning a proper income and saving appropriately, we can make the choices in our life to do whatever we want, to go and connect with friends, to go on a holiday. And money or lack thereof, the lack of money doesn't control us in saying you can't do that. If we had financial control at the moment, we would be able to go away guilt-free. I wouldn't have looked at that figure and gone, oh my goodness, we spent $1,100-ish approximately on a weekend away. It would be like, yeah, we spent money, we had a good time, and we planned for it. It's all okay. So yeah, it's good to, I think when you're feeling those feelings of a money hangover or guilt, financial guilt over what you've spent, it's important to sit in those feelings and then work backwards and go to the root of those feelings and go, how does this making me feel? What can I do about it? And how do we stop that for next time? And then actually come up with a plan so that you don't have to deal with these feelings of guilt or shame or a money hangover in the future. Uncomfortable feelings are there for a reason. Uncomfortable feelings make us improve and make us better at what we do. It's not something to push down with shame. It's something to sit in and talk about and work out how to improve that for next time. Dave Ramsey would 100% be berating us right now for for making the decision to go away. He always says, like, you know, when you're in a bad situation, or like, we don't have a lot of debt, but we don't have a lot of money. So he would be like, no holidays, you're not seeing the inside of a restaurant, like, you know. But at the end of the day, personal connections are really important to us. And we choose to sacrifice other things so that we can make that happen. The other thing that we did to kind of mitigate costs is, like I said, we used points to get 2 out of the 4 flights, and we secured the cheapest flights that we could. So even if that meant flying really early with a baby, which is tricky, we were willing to do that. Luckily, Henry did us a solid and slept the entire flight home. We could be way more exhausted than what we are if he had put up more of a fight or had been difficult in the travel. So I mean, in saying that, I'm pretty exhausted already, and I'm exhausted in advance because I start a brand new job tomorrow and I'm going full time. Currently, I'm working part-time, so 3 days a week, and as of tomorrow, I am moving into a practice group, which I'm so excited about, but I think it's going to be a bit of a shock to the system, and I am feeling very overwhelmed at how I'm going to manage spending time with Henry, having time with my child when I work in the city, so it's a bit of a commute, you know, continuing this podcast and exercising, keeping up my running training, going to Pilates. Like, how am I going to manage this? I'm feeling very overwhelmed by it. And I think that it's probably a very universal feeling. Like, a lot of mums who are deciding to go full time would be feeling like this. And there are 2 reasons that I decided to go for this job. One was career aspirations and career goals, and the other one is financially. Like, we need to start moving forward with full-time income. I kind of felt like my hands were tied, as well as from a career perspective, I was eager to change. So I think that we can dive into that a little bit today, because I think this is going to be a universal feeling for any families who would really just love to spend all of their time with their little babies, but financially they're not in the position to do that. So how we come to that decision, how we juggle it, what we're doing to, you know, make the transition easier, and how are we preparing to go into full-time work. Just so you know as well, like, obviously I'm a mum sharing my mum perspective, but like, I think Connor's going to go through exactly the same feelings when he goes back to work full-time. And I think it's quite universal for dads as well. Like, once there's a new baby in the mix and they have to be working full-time and they're feeling those feelings of withdraw, like, what's the word? Like, they're being separated from their child and from their family, and they're missing out on these golden years. So I think that this is actually quite a universal feeling. It's not just for mums, it's also the dads out there too. So when I'm feeling really overwhelmed, which I have been feeling, like, I was questioning everything. I was like, what am I doing? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Henry's only little for so long. Like, I suddenly found myself getting afraid of hard work, like the idea of really long hours and being stressed. And I was like, this is going to be really hard. Like, a corporate law firm as a junior lawyer, this is going to be tough. And I found myself, I don't think I've ever been afraid of hard work, ever. Like, that is just not in my personality. And this is the first time I really started to have that fear. Like, am I going to be able to do it? And I started to doubt myself, you know, maybe having a child in the mix. But when I'm feeling these very big feelings of overwhelm, like, I was really doubting every decision we had ever made. And I was like, I can't do this. It really helps to zoom out. Remind myself why we're actually doing this, why we made this decision in the first place. And as I mentioned, that comes down to 2 different things. So one is career-wise. I was admitted in October of 2023, so it's coming up to a year ago. And my title, even though I've been doing lawyer work in my current team, my title was not lawyer. And it is really important for career progression that from the minute you are admitted, you are working as a lawyer, because your promotions are all based on years post-qualification, so PQE, post-qualification experience. So that's the career aspiration side. The other prong of why we're doing this is financially speaking. So for the last year, more, I don't even know how long, it's like maybe 2 years, we lived off my income my income as a paralegal, which was not very consistent and not a lot of money. Then we lived off my maternity leave from the government, again, barely enough money to survive. And then my part-time income since November last year. So it's coming up to a year. It is time for us to have at least one full-time income. Like, it's just time. We cannot move forward with our goals. We cannot move forward at all, period, until we have a proper, consistent full-time income, at least one. Like, Connor is working really hard, bless his soul. It is so difficult, the job market right now. Anyone who is looking for a job, you have my complete sympathy. Like, it is really tough. We heard that there's 27% less jobs on Seek than last month. The unemployment rate has gone up from 3.5% to 4.1, I think, percent. One of Connor's jobs that he applied for sent an automatic reply and was like, thanks so much for your application. We've had 900 applicants for one role. 900. It is brutal. So yeah, anyone looking for a job, my complete sympathies are with you. It is brutal. It's so much rejection, and it's not even rejection that you get to learn from. It's not productive rejection because you don't get feedback. You're just like putting all this stuff out there and you get nothing back. So we are desperate for proper income from the financial perspective, and then from our wider goals. That income we can then funnel into our emergency fund, get that done, saving for a property. We really want to get into the property market in the next 12 months and we had to put our investing into shares on hold, so then we can restart doing that consistently. So that fits in. So we zoom. What we do is we're feeling overwhelmed. We go, that's fine. I'm overwhelmed in this moment, but let's zoom out. Why have we chosen this decision? Look at our bigger 12-month goals. So finding our feet financially, increasing our income, which then serves the third goal of buying property and starting to invest again. Then you zoom out a little bit higher, because when you're feeling that overwhelmed, you go, well, is it really that important that we get ahead? What about Henry? What about his childhood? What about, those years go so fast? Is it really that important? So for me, I was still feeling really overwhelmed. So you zoom out even further and you look at, how are these goals anchored into our values? How are they attached to our larger core values? We spoke about our core values last week. I'm going to go over some of them again and how this decision hits our core values. So one, stability. It gives us consistent income, and it might also help us in finding a consistent routine. Albeit that routine will be very squished. I did my schedule last night. It looks impossible. Every minute of every day is scheduled out from 5 a.m. until 10:30 p.m. So I don't know how that's going to work, but it will be a bit of trial and error. But we will be getting stability in terms of income, and stability is such a core value of mine. The stability leaks into our family life, which is another core value of calmness in our home. If you are feeling stable, you can be calm in your home life. So stability is so important to me. The second one is the core value of financial freedom. So harnessing our income allows us to invest and at least get back on track on the path towards financial freedom. The third core value, that it hits is the value of entrepreneurship. And this is quite, this is really zooming out, but this is not as obvious when you first think about going back into the workforce when you're an entrepreneur, but it actually really helps our longer term goal of being a business owner, because we basically came out of uni and tried to start a business straight away. This sort of path of like being a casual worker, being a uni student, being in your early 20s, immediately starting a business, and trying to start multiple businesses. When you have no hard skills, when you have no connections in any industry, we don't come from big wealthy families that can pour money into our ideas or give us an investment or give us a leg up. We were really trying to do it from scratch with very limited experience. This sort of entrepreneurship is very highly romanticized in social media and in movies like Hollywood, where a young, bright-eyed, young 20-year-old steps into entrepreneurship. They hit it lucky and they, have this great app idea, whatever it is, and then they are boosted into overnight success, and they're like, for like the youngest millionaire, whatever. And you see it all over social media. It's the stories that, because these stories are actually so rare, it's what makes them so incredible, and it's what makes them stories to share in the media, in social media, in Hollywood. The reason they are so gripping and they get our attention is because they are so rare and it's not the normal path. When you actually look at really successful entrepreneurs and business owners, they were working in an industry for at least 5 to 10 years, maybe even longer. You need to build up, we've learnt this the hard way, but you need to build up hard skills, and most importantly, you need to build up connections. Like, having a wide network is what is going to propel you forward. We tried the whole going straight into entrepreneurship. Like, we were very this is what we want to do. We're not letting anything step in our way, which I understand why we chose that path, because like I said, I'm a career girl. So I am the kind of person who gets bogged down in the day-to-day of my career. I'm doing it. This is what I'm doing. I'm putting my all into this one thing. So I can see why I made that decision to go, if I go down the career path now, I might never fall into entrepreneurship. I might never have the time to do this. So I'm very all or nothing. So I made the decision to be all entrepreneurship. It didn't give us any feelings of stability, because we didn't have any money coming in. We didn't see immediate success. We didn't have a stable income. We both sides, so both Connor and I, decided to go into entrepreneurship together with no income. As we were talking about in other episodes, Connor did start to bring in an income through his YouTube, which was awesome, but it wasn't a lot. So it was about $50,000 over the course of the year to then support our family. So not a lot of money. It was some money. He was on the success spiral at this point. I wasn't. So I wasn't earning money. I was earning little bits, drips and drabs, but not enough. When you're not seeing that success, you don't have feelings of stability, which means you cannot take the risks or make the decisions that you need to make. We were flailing about because we didn't know we couldn't step forward with confidence. We didn't know what path to walk down. We could not take that step forward with confidence because we weren't taking it from a place of stability. If you picture you're trying to cross a stream and there's rocks, a little rock path to walk on, and you step onto a wobbly rock, so an unstable rock, and it's wobbling, and you're oh, okay, which way do I go? And you have you have this moment of which rock is going to be stable for me to jump on? There's all these rocks ahead of me. I'm unstable right now. I need to step onto a stable one, and I need to step on a stable one, because otherwise I'm going from this unstable rock, this wobbly rock, onto another wobbly rock, and I'll fall off. So you're kind of looking around, scrambling to find a stable rock to step on, and you don't know which one to take. Suddenly your confidence has been shaken because you're well, I thought this one was stable. How do I know? How do I know if it's stable or not? Because you're wobbling around and you're unsure of which rock to step onto. You can't step confidently, and the likelihood of you falling into the water anyway is quite high, because you're wobbling, you try and take a step forward and you fall. That's basically how our last 2 years have been. Us wobbling around on these rocks trying to cross a busy stream. So all of that to say is that it actually does hit our core value of entrepreneurship, because it's helping us to build up our skills, build up our network that then we can flip and use for our own business. The only core value that it doesn't hit is family quality time. This is the one that I'm most concerned about, and this is the one that even once I've done this whole big zoom out exercise, I still feel overwhelmed by, because it's not a solvable one. Henry going to daycare full time breaks my heart. It really hurts me, and I don't know how to solve this problem. I know that a lot of other working parents have this problem. There is no solving it. I think the only solution is if you had grandparents who were willing to look after your child, willing and able, which we do not have on either side. So it puts you in the position where they have to go to daycare full time. And man, social media is so dangerous for this kind of thing, because you just hear these little 5-second, 10-second snippets of, if you send your child to daycare, they're going to be screwed up for the rest of their life. Like, that's what you hear. No, like, you know, they reference some sort of study, but we don't see the study. We don't know how accurate it is. We don't know if it's been peer reviewed or whatever. So you're just hearing this from all angles. Every time you open your phone, you hear, because, you know, the algorithm gets stuck on it. You're just hearing how much you're damaging your child. But at the end of the day, like, if we don't send Henry to daycare now and we don't work full time, like, we are going to be in this constant position of what, we don't have enough money to make ends meet. We have this baby that we can't take care of properly because we can't even live in our own place. Like, if we don't choose this hard now for a temporary time, we're going to be in this hard forever. Like, we need to have two parents earning a full-time income so that we can get out of this, so that when he is a teenager, or when he's even hopefully earlier than a teenager, like, we have more time to spend with him. It's just one of those things that you don't really have a choice when you put it like that. Like, yeah, I have a choice. I could not work, like, he could not go to daycare full time, but like, where would we live? I don't know. It's not actually really a choice, because we wouldn't be earning enough money to pay for rent with the obscene rent prices right now. And, you know, my job being in the middle of the city, that means that we can't just go and live out in whoop whoop. It's just tricky. The whole thing is tricky, and it doesn't feel like there's a solution. But I think at the end of the day, we have to choose the hard now, which is more likely to be temporary if we go all in. So if we go all in for the next year or two and he goes to daycare full time, that's going to be really hard. But hopefully if we go all in for 2 whole years and we're really good with our money and we make good decisions, we take appropriate risk, we harness the power of our income and we turn that into something great, then hopefully for the next, you know, again, that's zooming out, looking at the next 5 years, the next 10 years, we're going to have more time to spend with Henry and whatever other children come. We also spoke to a psychologist who gave us things to look out for to indicate that Henry's not coping with full-time care, because we were so worried about all of these little things that we were hearing on social media about how much it damages your child. So the psychologist gave us a list of things to look out for. So I'm not going to put them here because I'm not a psychologist and I'm not here to give you parenting advice. I'm just talking through my experience. The psychologist was actually Connor's psychologist that he got through a mental health care plan. And so he just mentioned this in one of his sessions and they gave him a list of things to look out for. That's given us a little bit of confidence, a little bit of agency to be like, okay, if we notice, like, we know what to look for, we're a little bit more in control there. If we see these things, we can reevaluate and adjust. The other thing that we're doing for Henry is we're setting times over the weekend that are like set times where we can really have one-on-one time with him, each have one-on-one time, and we have family time. So we're putting in the calendar, blocking out intentional Henry time. The other thing that I've done, which is why it was really important to me to be in a flexible workplace, is that if I leave my work by 4 p.m, takes me 1 hour and 10 minutes to travel home, I can then pick up Henry by 5:10 and spend from 5:10 until 6:30 with him. And, you know, yeah, that'll be dinner, bath, bed, but it can be really intentional time where I foster that relationship and that attachment with him. So that's something that we're doing, noting that it doesn't hit that core value. We are taking measures to make it somewhat okay. And again, zooming out even bigger to go, yes, it doesn't meet that core value right now, but it meets that core value in 5 to 10 years. And if we don't sacrifice now, if we don't choose the hard now, we will never get that core value met. Even in 5 to 10 years, it's not going to happen. We'll be in limbo forever. We'll be having a low income. We won't have been able to invest early on. Like, we'll have more kids, it'll be even harder. So it's like we're doing it now so that in 5 to 10 years, we can meet that core value of quality family time. The other thing that's really helped is to do some really practical things, like to prepare myself for the flow of the week, to make it feel like this is going to be somewhat possible. So a few weeks ago, when I had the date set, I spent a few weekends prepping a bunch of food. So I made about 7 to 10, maybe more, maybe 15 big meals that then broke down into smaller portions. So I think it was about 6 portions per meal, or 6 to 8 portions per meal that I was able to freeze. And so that means that for a little while, for the next month, maybe I'm anticipating about a month, we're going to be set for dinners. So I'll cook on the weekends, but on Monday to Friday, our dinners are all pre-made and we just have to get them out of the freezer and they'll be ready to go. So that means I don't have to get home from work with Henry, frantically try and cook and give him dinner. It's like it's all there, it's all ready already. And then every month or so, because I did so many in one go, if I then take a weekend in a few weeks and make 2 to 3 meals, then it will kind of be like this ongoing thing where there's always meals in the freezer. So, and I only have to cook every few weeks. The other thing that I'm doing, which I actually only just have done, is planning out how I'm going to fit everything in, like physically planning it out. So I've written up a little schedule. It looks a bit intense. I've color coded it to make it feel a little bit more achievable, or like I can kind of see it at a glance. So I'm trying to fit in this podcast, being consistent with this, going to the gym, so going to my Pilates classes, and running, keeping up my running training, because that is something that is so important to me. I still really want to be able to do a 10K and I want to be able to do it soon, even if it's not in the race. I just want to be able to do it myself. And of course, Henry. Oh, and obviously as well, like partner time, like husband time. So date nights, we've really struggled to fit in date night, but anyway, we did it. We're going to see how it goes. So that what this looks like is having a really structured week where I know Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. I go to Pilates. That's non-negotiable. Wednesday night, non-negotiable date night. The only problem with this for me is that my work is going to have hours that I'm going to need to do after Henry goes to bed. So even though I'm starting earlier to account for leaving earlier, like leaving at 4, the nature of the work is that people send things 5:30, 6 o'clock at night that need to be dealt with by the next day, before the next day. That's just the nature of the work. It's like flexible work hours and law, it's like a bit laughable because it's just not really a thing. So I actually don't know how having non-negotiable fit-ins are going to work. It's going to have to be just a bit of trial and error, but I'm hoping to really try, and I'm not sure how this is going to work. This is just me in anticipation of what I believe is going to happen, trying to prep. Probably in a few weeks, once I'm a few weeks in, I'll need to reevaluate my routine, my calendar. But yeah, I think for me, it's really, we only have so many decisions that we can make in a day. And it's really important that a lot of those decisions are preset. So we know exactly what we're doing that day before we even wake up. So Mondays, I know I do Pilates. There's no choice. I don't have to make that choice because it's pre-decided for me. The other thing that I have to try and do is to set the 4 p.m. leaving boundary with my team really clearly up front so that they know there's no confusion as to where I am. They're not emailing me expecting me to get things in. They know 4 p.m. till 6:30 I am blackout. I'm not there. I am not reachable. I'm not available. It's really hard to set those boundaries when you're trying to learn and you're trying to impress a team and you're trying to make an impact and be as helpful as possible. I'm going to really struggle. I just know I am. I am the type of person who says yes to everything. I bend over backwards. I am that person. I have no boundary setting capabilities. So this is going to be a challenge for me to learn how to set those boundaries. It's just going to have to be. The good thing is that I know other people in the team have similar arrangements. At least I know I'm stepping into a team where the precedent has been set. They already know that that's how it operates and it's not going to be that confusing for them as long as I am over communicating where I am at all times. So that's just, I'm just going to have to set it from the very get-go. I leave at 4 p.m. and I'm not back online until 6:30. I can be online on my commute, so it might end up being more like I'm offline from 5 until 6:30, but I physically leave the office at 4, so I can't do meetings, etc. I think the other thing to remember about this is like clear is kind. So the clearer and the more upfront I am with my team from the get-go, the easier their workload, like the easier their day is going to flow. They're not going to be sitting there wondering where I am. Like clear is kind always. So the other thing that I am really aware of is that big change can be very difficult to cope with emotionally, and we are already in a space of huge change. We've just moved states. There's just so much going on. We're already in that space. But even without all of that, like starting a brand new job is a big change that can really take a toll emotionally. So I'm already making use of the EAP, which is employee assistance program, maybe. So I already have a psychologist. Connor is, so it's available to my family members. So Connor has a psychologist on it. I have a psychologist on it, and we have couples counselling on it as well. So we have already established that. We've met the psychologists. The dates are all set. We know when we're doing it. I thought it was really important to do that before the change started so that it can set us up for the change. And it's sort of like proactive rather than reactive. Again, doing that, reminding ourselves of the larger goals, that zoom out exercise, and doing that quite regularly. So writing out our big vision regularly, reminding myself, like just constantly zooming out and just knowing that this all has a bigger purpose. The other thing that I'm going to really have to struggle with is not letting the stress of work get to me. I'm such a walking freaking cliche, like of a law grad, where I am a huge perfectionist. Like it's just such a cliche. It's ridiculous. I'm the most cliche person in the whole world. And here I am with a podcast. That makes me even more stereotypical. Honestly, you guys, could I be more infuriating? But basically I'm going to, because I have Henry, it's just not possible if I try and do everything perfectly, and I have to just understand that not everything has to be perfect. One of my very dear friends has this notion or concept or ideal, I'm not sure what to call it, but she doesn't believe in balance. She talks about how things ebb and flow. So instead of finding a balance consistently, you just have to be aware that life ebbs and flows. There are going to be times when I am going to be a fantastic mum and I'm going to be there for Henry at all times. And there are other times where I'm going to be a fantastic worker and I'm going to be there doing the absolute best job that I can be. And there are other times where I have to be okay that I'm not going to be perfect. There are going to be certain tasks, certain things where 80% is good enough. It doesn't have to be 110%. It doesn't have to be. You just have to learn how to pick and choose when you put the 110% effort in. So I just love that concept of ebbing and flowing, because trying to find a balance is like putting pressure on yourself to be perfect at all times. But if you think about a scale, it goes like up and down. So even if it balances, it's still going like, it's still moving, right? It's still going up and down. That's just how life is. Instead of fighting against that and being like, no, it has to be still, it has to balance, just accepting that life goes up and down, it ebbs and flows. And I think that gives a little bit of acceptance. So instead of resistance, it's acceptance. It's leaning into it and going, that's okay. When I can't give my all to Henry, Connor can. That's why there's two of us. That's why we are a team. I think if I don't have that ebb and flow mentality, or that like 80% is good enough at some points, like I won't survive. I won't survive this job. And I think that's true of all lawyers, even if they don't have children. If you can't let go of being perfect at all times, you won't survive. You'll burn out and you'll crash and burn. So it's really important to learn how to do that. And I think it's good that I'm getting this lesson earlier on in my career. The other thing is to remind myself constantly, we aren't surgeons. No one is going to die if we make a mistake. No one is going to die. Everything is fixable. Everything is fixable. It might take a little bit longer. It might take a lot more money. But at the end of the day, it's fixable and it'll be okay. You know, no one's going to die. That's something that's really important to remind myself. The other thing that I'm going to try and do is to really focus on being as efficient as possible in the day. Like, I literally have in my calendar, like, work your fucking ass off and like have hyper focus. That's what's noted in my calendar for the work block out period, because I cannot afford to be distracted. My time for work is so limited that I have to have a high output in the hours that are allocated to work. The only thing about this is that it's difficult to have a high volume of output and work as hard as you possibly can in set hours in this line of work, because you might be not having a lot on from 8 until 3, and then someone sends you something urgent at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 5, and then you have to deal with it. Like, it's not an option. It's actually making me think that maybe as an industry, if we had just like set this boundary early on as a whole industry, it's like, no, we can't work outside of hours. Like, if we didn't have the technology, if we didn't have the internet, you wouldn't be able to work these crazy hours, and business would have to realize that, okay, we can't execute this overnight. Deal with it, find another way. Like, I just think as an industry, we've set ourselves up for failure. But anyway, so it's making me really realize, like, set expectations, manage expectations. Boundaries are so important in all facets of life. The other thing is sleep as much as I can. I have to have a strict bedtime. I have to have that. I have to have that boundary in place. Like, I cannot go to bed later than 10:30. I just cannot. I will not function. And then we each have one day on the weekend. So Connor has one day and I have one day where we get to sleep in. So the other person gets up with Henry, the other person sleeps in, so that we can catch up a little bit on that sleep. This weekend, Connor has been a darling and has kindly given me both days because he's not working full time yet. So he doesn't have to be so on and up so early. Even though he's up early with Henry, he doesn't have to be like up and out the door. So he's given me the weekends to sleep, which is, I'm so looking forward to that. What a darling. Seriously, Connor's the best. And I really feel grateful that I have him to lean on in this time. Like, I'm so grateful that I have a partner who just yep, like just literally says yes to everything, is so ready to make this work. So yeah, feel really grateful for that. One thing I realized about full-time work and being full-time in the office, which is what I'm doing. So for the beginning part of this job, for the first few months at least, I'm going to be full-time in the office. I'm not going to take advantage of the working from home arrangements, because the way you get brought into things is to be around, to hear conversations, to understand how the people in the team work, to build up that relationship. This is what I learned from when I was a paralegal. I very quickly realized that working from home gets you nowhere. Like, you had to fight for work when you were a paralegal in this team. Like, so I had to be around, and I was like, okay, I don't care that I'm pregnant. I don't care that I get intense motion sickness going into the office. Like, every day I'd be sitting on the train for an hour, like trying not to vomit. But I realized that it is so important to be in the office in order for you to score the work. You have to be around. People have to see you, see your personality. You understand their little nuances. You hear things going on, so you can go, like, just little conversations between people, and you go, oh, I can do that. I'll do that. You can insert yourself. If there's a meeting, a client meeting, and you're there, you can be invited along. But if you go, oh, I don't have any meetings today, I'm going to work from home, there's no chance of you being invited along to those meetings. It is so important to be there, even though it's really hard because it's such a commute and it's tiring and you have to wear makeup. And I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do that. But speaking of makeup and skincare and all the rest, man, it's expensive being a woman. Going to work full time while you have a higher income, if you're going into the office every day, you have to pay for travel. I think it's about $50 a week on transport. That's an increased expense. Makeup, You go through your makeup so much faster because you have to wear makeup every single day. So there's that expense, and then there's outfits. I don't have a lot of work clothes. I also don't have a lot of clothes generally because my body has changed so much. If I'm going into the office every single day, I'm going to need 5 days a week worth of clothes. So, and like I'm only earning $6,000 a year more in this position once you take into account tax. So $6,000 a year is in my pocket for this position. I cannot be spending thousands of dollars on clothes and makeup throughout the year, which is really how much it costs. So I'm going to have to start. I think I have enough outfits, and like maybe if you mix and match, maybe for like 3 or 4 days that are appropriate for work that I actually fit right now. So I think I'm going to have to be comfortable repeating outfits. Totally fine with that. And going to Vinnie's and things like that to find pieces that I can wear to work without breaking the bank, because if I spend all this money on clothes and makeup getting to the office, it kind of makes taking the position redundant from a financial sense, even though from a career sense it's still better. Man, being a woman is hard. Girls cop it for spending a lot of money, but when you take into account hair, I don't dye my hair, but most women do. That's a really big regular expense. Getting a haircut. I mean, men have to get a haircut, but it's way cheaper. Skincare, skin treatments, hair removal, clothes. Like a man can literally have 1 or 2 suits. They can wear that for every event. A woman has to buy a dress for every event. The dresses are like $300 these days, unless you can get one from Vinnie's. Honestly, being a woman, it grates me when people are like, oh, women spend so much money. Oh, my wife spends so much money. It's like, yeah, you try being a woman and not spending money. Impossible. It's actually really hard. Bras. Do you know how much money bras are? Men don't have to buy bras and they die. Like, you don't just buy them once. You have to keep buying them. That can be a whole nother episode though. Honestly, I could talk about that. The yonkadoodles. Anyway, I feel like this was a bit of a serious episode, but reach out to me, send me a voice note, send me a potty app if you are starting full-time work, or if you're looking for a job, or just let me know where you're up to in life, and I'd love to hear from you. Let's have a chat. Let's chat. I actually love this whole concept of like people sending me voice notes and then I respond. It'd just be lots of fun. It'll be fun. So anyway, let me know. Comment, all the rest. Okay, love you. Bye.